This video illustrates the scenario depicted in the paper of preparing a presentation about the dynamics of COVID-19 in the housing market in Seattle. Here we have metrics from two data sources, monthly housing sales and daily COVID statistics. We begin our narrative by adding a scene and a viz card to the canvas. We expect that the spikes in the number of positive COVID cases will establish a familiar context with our audience, so we'll populate our first viz card with this metric. After filtering this viz card to February 2020 and afterwards, the card shows two spikes, one at the end of 2021 and another toward the end of 2020. Next, we fill a text card to draw attention to these spikes and link these comments to the viz card. In doing so, RemixTape will interactively highlight the portion of the line chart in the adjacent viz card that the text refers to. Continuing this narrative, we want to establish a contrast between these two spikes. To do this, we'll create copies of the initial viz card showing the number of positive cases, create two filtered versions focusing on the time period covering these spikes, and juxtapose these filtered viz cards. In these juxtaposed viz cards, one shows that the 2020 spike peaked around Thanksgiving, whereas the other shows the more recent spike peaking around New Year's in 2022. By synchronizing the y-axes, we can communicate that the magnitude of the recent New Year's spike is almost 7.5 times the magnitude of the Thanksgiving 2020 spike. Next, we create another text card and position it between the two cards to communicate this contrast. To contextualize these observations with respect to other metrics, we create a copy of the viz card showing the bigger spike and add a new viz card after that. RemixTape now recommends metrics that exhibit a similar trend during the selected time period. We add the people tested metric to the canvas to draw attention to the difference between that metric and the number of positive cases. RemixTape gives us the option to merge these viz cards as it notices that the two metrics share a common timescale and have a comparable y-axis domain. We merge the cards and repeat the same process for the preceding year's spike, again juxtaposing the viz cards. To draw further attention to the higher values for both metrics associated with the more recent spike, we add annotations to the y-axis. Having established context around two COVID metrics, we now want to show what was happening in Seattle's real estate market around the same time. To this end, we create a second scene. Because we know the metrics that we want to show, we manually select the homes sold and the positive metrics, and specify the time range corresponding to the recent spike. In response, RemixTape implicitly adjusts the temporal granularities and presents a multi-series line chart that we can add to the canvas. In our second multi-series viz card for the 2020 spike, we show that there is a drop in home sales around the November to January period, which is when the COVID cases rose. While we want to emphasize this occurrence, RemixTape notices that we have only included specific time ranges in the scene and suggests including an overview spanning the entire time range for these available metrics. By including the pre-COVID time range, our audience can now appreciate that the lower home sales in December is not specific to 2021 or 2022, but rather a more general trend. We can add this helpful context in a text card. We can also consider other home sales metrics to enrich our narrative. To this end, we add a viz card displaying the homes sold metric and use RemixTape's recommendation for subsequent cards to include related metrics. The new listings metric has a very similar pattern to the homes sold metric. So we add this to the canvas and merge the cards, indicating in a text card that the number of home sales closely follows the number of new listings. With two scenes comprised of sequences of viz cards and text cards, we now have a narrative drawing from two disparate sets of metrics that we can use to communicate observations about the Seattle housing market before and during the pandemic. We can share this canvas with colleagues for them to interact with directly, or we can present it using RemixTape's built-in interactive presentation mode. Finally, RemixTape's Scene Summary panel gives an overall sense of the temporal granularity across the scenes on the canvas and the metrics they contain, as well as illustrating the chronological coverage of the narrative.